I figured it's time to start recording now because I'm in a pretty good flow with my contemplation, and I think I'm in still a good enough state where I can release a solid video about this stuff. So, I was watching Leo Gura's um, latest video on actualize.org, which is about his new awesome awakening. Congrats, by the way. And if you guys aren't like Leo and having massive awakenings as often as him, you're not maximizing your potential. You're definitely not maximizing your potential. Um, I could just say, I know for certain, there's someone out there who's reaching his own PRs and consciousness, you might say, if we want to phrase it a little differently, on a very regular basis. And in a sense, like, you kind of do have to look at this like training anything else. It works in a very similar way at the end of the day. Sure, it's a little bit counterintuitive or different or less linear than other processes, awakening, of course, but it really does just come down to exercises. Are you doing those exercises with the correct form? Are you, supporting those exercises with the nutrition of a life that is in harmony with that objective? See, if you want to be having awakenings very often that are very potent, that don't destabilize you, but are moving you forward, you've got to be doing it with pretty good form. You've got to be doing it with pretty good form. And what does that mean? It means that you're going to have to find a system that works for your own individual consciousness work in your experience right now. Something I have no access to whatsoever, and no one else does. There's nothing else that has access to what you're experiencing right now other than you, or essentially an exact replica of you, down to the very tiniest sensations in your field of experience right now. By the time I said right now and you heard it and you thought about it, it was already something else. So that's what we're trying to pin down. It's ultimately the ungraspable. That's the sort of category of, or you might say facet of awakening that I've been getting into lately, is something that I'm calling the ungraspable. And at the end of the day, it's really not out of the ballpark of all the other things people think are, next level insights into spirituality, truth, existence, whatever, consciousness, whatever you want to say. If people are moving forward, you've got to be having steady progress. You've got to be training. You've got to be putting in the hours and using the right tools, Sure, you can get a great physique working out with bodyweight exercises, but using tools is good too. And this brings me to an important point that I kind of was thinking about earlier that I want to stress. Thoughts, sure, they can hinder awakening and make it harder, right? They also can enhance it. Thoughts are ultimately tools, and they can take you in a negative or positive direction. And ultimately, thoughts are the things which are determining those directions. It's really the thoughts and stories that you have in your experience right now, which are shaping so much of it. So much of it. So, on one hand, one might think, okay, I'll go to states that are very intense and, awakening without thought. And that's going to be great. And it is. It's fucking amazing to actually go away from the stories and be with experience as it is. But ultimately, you got to realize, even when there is thought, experience is still what experience is. And that is what you're experiencing right now. And if you want to be with this, it's all just about practicing consistently. And words are tools, thoughts are tools, beliefs are tools, Spiritual theory is a tool. Your imagination is a tool. All of these things anything that you can ever put in a story format, like for a human being to kind of believe in or lean on as a way things are, even if it's based on perception and on the level of like linguistic thought, completely kind of like subconscious to the person, there are fundamental aspects of reality which are just so key to people's experience, mine as well, all the time. Um, these are human concepts that actually impact your perception. One is gravity, another is space. um, there are plenty of things like this. And ultimately, really, a word used in the sense that I'm talking about more is using words for exploration of consciousness. What state do you want to get to? Oh, I'll follow, the methods of the people who talk a lot about said thing that I want to experience. And at the end of the day, consciousness will bring itself closer to that thing in some sense, one way or another. Think of a storyline in humanity, like Christianity or Advaita Vedanta or Hinduism or Buddhism or scientific materialism or the idea that this is a hand. All of these things are going to send you, if you focus your attention on a word and the meaning behind it and the context of it and the way that it relates to the present moment and all of this, and you actually focus on what that word means, you'll realize that words are taking you places. So choose your words wisely and choose what words you listen to wisely. If what I'm talking about right now, which I haven't really gotten to get into yet, I'm talking about the Ungraspable. I'm kind of leading up to that, but really I'm talking about like methods and like I was saying, like it's kind of like working out or something. You've got to train often if you want to build your body, but you also have to use the right techniques, right nutrition. It's like you've got to set up the right life for your awakenings. That's like nutrition. You've got to use the right tools. Maybe that's a meditation technique. Maybe that's a psychedelic. Maybe that's, a number of things. A yoga technique, even some kind of normal thing that you're just really good at that brings you into like a flow state. I mean, there are so many things that take people to different states. But the ungraspable is ultimately, you could say, in a sense, and this is going to really dumb it down and not do justice to what I'm talking about, but it's kind of the closest, like, simple way for me to just introduce you to it before I go deeper. So we're talking about the ungraspable. It's ultimately the sensations that are there for you in your experience in the present moment. It's all that you have access to, and it's changing at such a rapid rate. Every single sensation. Your visual field is made up of so many sensations. It's just most people aren't at a state where they are at the level of consciousness or mindfulness or perception, however you want to say it. They aren't able to actually sense at a subtle level what is there. It's the subtle universe of consciousness that is so much better, in a sense. That's what I'm arguing. But it's every tiny sensation making up your field of experience right now. It's everything you know, everything you are, everything you could ever imagine is there, in a sense. I mean, it's also not. It's also a very certain appearance right now for you. You're probably a human being, probably watching a video on a phone or a laptop or even a TV or something, or somebody told you about this, but somehow this video is getting to you. But it's the present moment experience that's happening to you right now, but at such a quick rate that there is no time for concepts. There's no time for storylines. There's no time for anything. And this is a certain type of no mind, but there are different types of no mind and infinite mind and all of this stuff. You can have no mind, and then also you could have like infinite mind. So, like in a sense, sort of like intellectual or like understanding, or even in like a being way, like super connected with reality, experience, consciousness, whatever. But when you get to these higher levels of consciousness, you can perceive many, 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 many different sensations very quickly, and it really does start to break down the solidity of your experience. And you realize ultimately that this is just a self-contained experience movie that can do anything, essentially, that is capable of anything. This ungraspable notion of experience that I'm talking about. It is the edge of the edge of the edge of the edge of the present moment. It's basically gone before it gets there, is how quick that reality moves at the level of perception as a human being who's been doing spirituality pretty consistently and at times very, very seriously for years. I've been doing spiritual work for like 8 years. I had awakenings even before then, staggeringly young ages. So I don't even want to get into that because it's going to, I mean, it doesn't really matter that much, but I mean, the thing is, it's like my experience was kind of set up for this path, and I mean, that's really how your experience is too. It feels like, oh, this was kind of set up for the path I'm at right now. It's if you're operating at any human level, it's going to feel like that. Like, okay, it kind of, I mean, if I'm honest with myself, seems like some things that are in memory or my mind right now from the past are kind of affecting what's experienced right now. At the very least, your concepts of what this is, your concepts of being human, your concepts of what awakening is, your concepts of how much, or how much spiritual work you've done, like how much experience you have, how many different states you've gotten to that are very radically different and insightful, or potentially insightful, or can produce insight. So much goes into this, but it's ultimately just this infinitely fast shifting thing that's there before you can even really process it at a human intellectual level, and it's gone before you can even process it at a human intellectual level. You see, this thing exists, or is apparent, or seems to be the case of what is perceived right now. It feels like that, but it's so quick that you're never really with the thing that you would think you're with if you're thinking at regular human speed. You won't be able to keep up with this. Words and thinking can't. But your character, your experience, this human being in it, can be saying things and talking about things. And meanwhile, the direct experience that is going on is so quick, and that is where being and attention and focus are placed, is in this very tiny passing, shifting sand present moment that is infinite. And the thing is, this is impermanence. This is infinite impermanence on every sensation that you have in your field of experience. And I'm telling you, there is certainly the capability for you to experience more. And I don't think any human being, or really anything ever, or even experience itself, has ever reached what it's capable of. I really think that awakenings just can go on to places that we are, like, in a human sense, you might say, like, billions of years of, like, direct experience practice before, like, getting to these states. Like, it could be forever before experience really feels like it reached its potential. Or it could feel like it reached its potential and then there really be something way beyond it that it could never imagine. Like your experience right now, or mine experience right now, could never imagine the level it can get to. And that's ultimately because there's nothing controlling this experience in a sense. To me, it really appears to be the case that if anything's creating what is right now, what is experienced right now, for you, for me, in the present moment, just this right here as it is directly perceived, it's changing so quickly, and it is ultimately ungraspable, the thing that I'm trying to talk about. Because it's, in a sense, like so formless and so pure being and so existent and so non-existent and so fast and so infinitely long and so loving and painful and everything. Experience, just think about it. And however long your human lifetime has been, if it's been 20 years, if it's been 80 years, if it's been, you've been the Dalai Lama for 2 decades, it doesn't matter. Wherever you're at, you are not prepared for the potential of experience, the potential of consciousness, the potential of reality, as it's felt by you right now. You are not ready for it, because this potential is ungraspable. This thing itself is ungraspable. You can never hold on to it. Experience itself is based upon perceptual difference, in a sense. And maybe if you haven't had certain awakenings and experienced certain states of consciousness and certain, apparent opposites of states of consciousness, you might say, really, like, there was really nothing to it, you might say, about cessation. There was nothing to it, the thing itself, but there was a whole lot of intense appearance on both sides of experience, like where it appears that it happened and then after, and there being a jump in time, basically, in how experience was. All that can happen, but cessation, God realization, any awakening you'll ever get to or anyone could ever reach, it's all just going to be a part of the potential. One thing is that all these different lines of awakening, all of these different, you might say, facets of awakening, types of awakening, high states of consciousness, whatever, insight, all of this stuff can actually combine and like multiply. And this is something that I think a lot of people miss out on seeing, is how much these just different appearances within experience combine. And in an awakening context, you connect many different appearances within experience that are powerful and produce powerful states themselves. If you can do that synthesis very skillfully, you can multiply what experience is capable of. And the thing is, no human being has ever had enough time in direct experience to experience everything that it's capable of. There's always more. That's why it's infinite. No one can ever reach it. Nobody can ever grasp it. But at the same time, what you are right now as an experience, the wholeness of everything that you can feel, think, touch, smell, sense, in any regard, anything that could ever be thought about or pointed to, you are it right now as we speak, on that edge of the present moment. You are this ungraspable, and you're this infinite capacity. And one thing I'd like to talk about is love on the, like this metaphysical love of this ungraspable edge of the present moment direct experience that you're in right now. Like, the love is of the experience itself, every tiny, minute, and large, and powerful, and forgotten aspect of it, of this experience right now. It is forming all of it. It is all constructed right now. This, and this alone. What you're in alone is all that what you're in alone has access to right in this split second. That's all there is. And when experience is on something like an appearance, that is, in a sense, really kind of the deepest form of love there is. To be it, experience, or God, or consciousness, or all there is, or what is, or the truth, or anything, is to be creating itself and experiencing itself in that moment. And love, in a more relative sense, is the capability of that to be done to like a part of consciousness rather than the whole, rather than just what is right now. There are, you can have love in a like sort of human storyline sense of like for a person or whatever, and you're attracted to it, you're devoted to it, you put attention toward it, and it ultimately brings you into closer connection to it in some way or another. As far as experience goes in the direction that these different storylines and beliefs take you. And I'm just saying, when I say like thought can actually help awakening, I say that because you can find better ways of understanding reality. For yourself, in your experience, the only thing that you have access to, this edge of the present moment that's there right now, this ungraspable entity that's not an entity, that can't be explained, but is everything that's doing the explaining in a sense, and the listening and all of it. But really, there's nothing doing it, because this is not a thing. This is ungraspable, but it's everything. And it's stuff even weirder and wilder than that. Nothing can pin this down, and that's ultimately what you are. This infinitely powerful, omniscient, all-loving thing. The very being of your experience right now knows all of itself, and that's all there is for it to possibly access in that split second. The true beingness of your experience, your direct experience right now, is fucking everything, and it disappears into another form in the next micro nanosecond Planck length of time. It is gone and replaced entirely by a completely new configuration of experience. And it's just miraculous what human experience can create as far as awakenings go. I must say, if I were to be like, experience itself rating the capability of this model, I'd be like, wow, this one you can take really far if you do it right. I like this one when done right. That's basically the human life on planet Earth. You can take this pretty far. Maybe ultimately, undeniably, there's stuff way beyond it, but it can do some pretty awesome stuff. And the good thing about human life on Earth is that there is still a pretty good relative stability to the storyline, in a sense. If lived the right way, human life on Earth, like a person like me or you, if the right things are focused on and the right elements are there as far as the person goes in their life and their background and their motivations and their interests and their talents and their likes and their dislikes, if they're all lining up for this awakening thing and you're a human being on planet Earth, it is not a bad opportunity. I will say, I've thought to myself many times, it's like God gave himself a lottery ticket to the best experience possible. That's what it's felt like, subjectively to me, many times lately. It's been ridiculous. But it's like, to take awakening that far, to where it really just, it's like you've won the lottery of lotteries, the best possible thing you could ever hope for is here right now. And to do that regularly, it's just shocking. You're really not prepared for it, and I'm not, and I'm the one living it. I'm not prepared for this progress, and it's actually stabilizing to my normal life. This is the most stable I've been in a long time. Um, you know, I'm back in school, still running my own business, still working, still seeing family and friends, still having time for spiritual practice. Like, it's been pretty stable, and it's like the awakenings actually can do that if they're taken in the right direction. And I really think the direction is a meta direction. You have to take the awakenings in some sense to the very structure and fabric of experience itself. And one of the things that makes up that fabric that isn't a fabric and isn't a thing and doesn't exist in that sense, but also does. I don't know. I'm just telling you about it. Like, don't be mad at me that that's just how, a serious investigation over years into one's own direct experience. Just this is what it's unveiled to me. Just my practice is that this thing is just the most slippery of all things. It's so slippery that you can't really call it a thing, but somehow it can still kind of be spoken of, and you feel like you're saying something that actually says something about it. But really, no, it's way too vast. It's way too quick. It's way too imminent. It's way too just right here, right now, powerful, and just shifting before you know it, before you can even sense it almost. It's like reality's this fast. There's no time for a self. There's no time for a mind. There's no time for an ego. There's no time for anything. And that is the structure of what you are. Experience itself. It is just miraculous. And it's everything unmiraculous. It's everything experience right now. So, I hope that this has been helpful in some way to you. I don't know, I guess it was helpful for me. Just my own theory. I mean, this is taking my consciousness further. Hope it could do the same for you. Yeah, like the video if you liked it. Report it to your local government if you don't like it. And I'll see you guys in another video.